Welcome to the OddsBreakers, number one place for shared, sharp betting information.
All right, welcome back, my friends, to podcast 5 of 2019. I'm your host, Kiev O'Neill. You can tweet me at The Public Dog, and you can tweet us at the OddsBreakers. We have a wonderful and quick show for you today. It's going to be me going over some of our NCAA plays for this weekend, Friday, Saturday. We'll take a look at Sunday. This episode is being sponsored by MyBookie.ag. For a 50% bonus, please visit MyBookie and use the promo code TheOddsBreakers. Terms and conditions apply. If you'd like to help us out with our costs and support the podcast, we would love to help you out. Please become a member at theoddsbreakers.com for $12.99 a month, and we will give you plays and picks before the line moves. For $2 more, you can become a patron subscriber, get all that, and the podcast access a little early. And if nothing else, please visit theoddsbreakers.com and become a free picks newsletter subscriber. Lots of huge games this weekend. You have your Duke versus Virginia, number 1 and number 2 teams on, well, most of the Vegas power rankings anyway, Ken Pom and others. And you have Michigan versus Wisconsin, Florida, Georgia, North Carolina at Miami, Cincinnati, Wichita State, Alabama playing the unstoppable Tennessee Volunteers. Man, how good have they been? Jeez. Kentucky versus Auburn. Man, this day is absolutely loaded. Not even done handicapping for Saturday. I'm not lying. So I threw a few out there for us though to take a peek at. We're going to take a look at this, and then we'll go over the sharp line movements for the NFL. Let's get started here. Let's look at Maryland versus Ohio State. Ohio State should be laying 2 or 3 points at home. Over under is 139. And just let you know, I have to guess a lot of these lines, especially the Saturday ones. I get a sneak peek at the Friday ones. Probably, I get it a little bit later in the day. But the Saturday ones are all guessing. Here are 2 teams, Maryland and Ohio State. They're going in opposite directions. Ohio State has lost every game since their Big Ten opener. They haven't won one yet. That's definitely not good. Maryland, on the other hand, has kind of been on a tear, winning 6 games in a row and just beating Wisconsin at home there. Both teams are relatively injury-free. Looking at Ohio State, what the hell is going on with this team? They're better last year. Maybe it's the fact that Bates Diop is gone and it's finally shown its ugly face a little bit. They really haven't stepped up or improved, in my opinion. They haven't beaten anybody in the top 50 since game 1 in early November against Cincinnati. One thing that sticks out to me is that they don't have a great offense. I mean, you can kind of see that. And they also don't have a great 3-point percentage, but they do have a decent defense, and it's still ranking top 20 on Ken Pom. Maryland has actually been a pretty good scoring team, averaging 77 points per game, but only 70 on the road. Ohio State averages 80 at home themselves, but if you look at some of the teams that they played, you might not be that impressed. I mean, they're beating up on the tomato cans of the world, ranking like 250, like Youngstown State, Bucknell, High Point. I guess the best of that stretch was UCLA ranking 75, Samford, Cleveland State, South Carolina State. Great way to pad the stats when you play such a easy non-conference schedule. But when they play the tougher teams, Syracuse, Michigan State, Iowa, they just lost to Rutgers recently. Let's just average the top 50 teams and what they scored. They only averaged 64 points those games. Okay, only 64, and 2 of those games are at home, actually. And so, that just goes to show you when they step up in harder competition, they're not scoring all those points. All right. So the fact that Ohio State hasn't been a top 50 team, I like Maryland to keep it close here, if not win the game. But I really like the under. I think this is going to go under 139. And, my numbers have it around 136. And I think Maryland should be able to pull the win out. But Ohio State's so desperate. And, that's what I thought last week, and Iowa kicked their ass. Iowa's been a lot better, though. But I can't bet on Ohio State. It's hard to bet on Maryland here, but I think that if that spread gets any bigger, you're looking at the Maryland side. I'm going to play the under 138, 139, wherever it comes out. Ohio versus Toledo. Toledo laying about 10.5 points over under at 140.5. Okay, so just a full disclosure, I handicapped this game, and the more I got into it, the more I didn't like it. So this is going to be a slight lean for me. Ohio, or a slight play, let's say, maybe like a half unit. Ohio's coming in a very young team. They have a lot to prove. Toledo is exceeding expectations. They have a great record, 14-3. Toledo averages 80 points per game, both at home and on the road. Toledo also allows 63 points per game at home, which is great. When you look at the teams that Toledo beat, you realize why the numbers are so crazy. I mean, this is the same kind of situation. Toledo hasn't beaten a top 100 team all year, okay? And the only ones that they've played, they've lost to Buffalo by 30 points, number 19 Buffalo, and they lost to Ball State, number 91 Ball State, by 15. That's the only top 100 teams they've played. Toledo has had a Ohio has had a much harder schedule with more losses, but they've been able to beat teams like FIU, Detroit, Marshall, Ball State. So they're doing pretty good. Not great by any means, but they're a young team. Ohio hasn't been much on offense, only ranking 314 in adjusted efficiency out of 353 teams, but they do rank higher on defense than Toledo. At 49th in the country, Toledo ranks 90th. So I think this game's going to be a little bit closer for an in-state rivalry. I'm going to take Ohio plus the 10.5 on a small play, probably like a half unit or so. Don't love the game, but it's a spot where I saw Ohio coming off a really bad shooting night before. I think they just get a little bit back on track. Northwestern versus Rutgers. Rutgers it's going to be about a 1.5 point dog at home against the Wildcats. Over under is 128. So there are two things about these teams that we have to remember here. Northwestern lost some top production with Lindsey and McIntosh, right? But they kind of started out pretty good this year. But they're not quite as good, I don't think. Rutgers is definitely a little bit better, and they have a few quality wins here. They have one on the road versus Miami and one at home against Ohio State. And, got to give them some credit for that. And even though Ohio State's kind of in free fall, you still got to give Rutgers credit for what they did. Neither team here is really that good at anything. They don't rank in the top 100 really in anything, maybe rebounds or something. Both of them suffer on offense. They don't even rank in the top 120 on offense. Rutgers has had the harder schedule, though. And Northwestern has no big wins. Although Northwestern's got a lot of potential for the future with Vic Law and Derek Pardon. The problem for the Wildcats is that Vic Law, their best player, has been injured the past few games, and it's 50-50 that he plays. The handicap here is correct. If Vic Law is playing, Northwestern should be about a 1.5 point favorite. But if Vic Law isn't, then I really like Rutgers here. I really like Scarlet Knights, and I would probably parlay that with the under 128. So check Vic Law tomorrow on Friday, or today you're probably getting the podcast. It's probably Friday for you. Rutgers plus 1.5 and under if Law is out. All right, we have my Badgers facing the top team. The Big Ten is in Michigan here. Actually, Michigan State's ranked a little bit higher than them on KenPom, but Michigan is undefeated. Wisconsin's going to be about a point or two dog here, okay, at home. And the over-under is at about 125. It's certainly a big surprise to myself and a lot of Michigan fans how good this team's been after losing their best players, Abdur Rahman and Mo Wagner, to the NBA last year. Now we know the rest of the team has certainly improved, and they are probably the best coach team in the Big Ten, if not the whole NCAA. Beeline, give them a ton of credit right there. Wisconsin, on the other hand, is definitely talented in their guard positions and their center with Hap, but that's all they got down there. They have no good forwards that can score. They can play a little defense. Reavers can shoot a few threes, but nothing big down there for offensive production in the paint. Sometimes Wisconsin, how bipolar they've been, they can just straight up ball and hit everything, right? And then sometimes it looks like they haven't shot a basket in 3 freaking months. They scored like 12 points, 14 points the first half against Minnesota at home, and then 15 points the whole first half against Maryland. Then they almost win the game against Maryland, scoring I think it was 45, 50 points in the second half. It's crazy. It's crazy how they've been. The Badgers, they used to be great, great coaching. But right now, I think Coach Gard, he doesn't have this team disciplined at all. He might be one of the worst coaches in the Big Ten. A lot of people are screaming out that he's more of an assistant coach and a great recruiter, players kind of guy, rather than a head coach like Bo Ryan was. Give you a quick little example. When they're down by 3 to Maryland with 30 seconds left, they, instead of taking it to the hole, which Maryland would have gave them, they don't want to foul, and then being down by 1 and then fouling right away, making Maryland make pressure free throws, they dribbled around the perimeter, dying for a 3-point shot with 30 seconds left, and they ran the clock all the way down to about 9 seconds before they called the timeout. That is basketball 101 there. What the hell happened? Gard, what are you doing? This is his 3rd year. He's been an assistant for years. It blows my mind, absolutely. It blows my mind there. But the fact is that you can tell that they're not disciplined by the way they shoot free throws. They're 293rd in free throw percentage. They're 309th in rebounds, in offensive rebounds. There's some disciplines that they used to have that were great that, kind of faded away. Michigan's kind of replaced the disciplined Wisconsin team in the Big Ten. And not saying that they weren't before, but now, they're the team. They're top in steals, tops in turnovers.